Welcome to Figure Feedback. My name is Jeremy, and this is the Figure Feedback 2023 year in review. I see a lot of different channels doing this, so I figured I would just try the same thing. So this has been a pretty good year, I think, for this channel. I started it back in February of 2023, and as of right now, Figure Feedback currently has 1,729 subscribers and also 9.9 thousand watch hours as well, and that is just amazing. So thank you all. Anyone who's ever looked at any of these videos, left a comment, left a like, shared it with anybody, thank you very much. Because of you, I've been able to get numbers like this in less than a year of doing this, so thank you very much for that. And this channel has also opened up a lot of different firsts for me, because when I first started it, it was just going to be a channel based around basically like action figures and toys, and that was going to be like the only thing that I talk about here. But that was before I discovered 3D printing and what 3D printing can do when it comes to different figures. So it doesn't just have to be the plastic that we buy on store shelves. It can be things that we make here in our homes, and we can be even closer to those things because we have the opportunity to customize them. We have the opportunity to paint them and really make these things our own. So I think that it's because of that this channel has been able to sort of branch off in a direction that when I first started it, I didn't really foresee coming, and it is the direction that I want to continue to take it in the future. So in 2024, some things that I would like to do, because successful people say that you gotta make goals and put things out there in the world that you want to happen. So for 2024, what I would like to do on Figure Feedback is lean more into the 3D printing stuff, but I also want to start talking more about the FDM side of printing, because I know that resin is really awesome and I love the detail that it gives. But the reality is a lot of people can't do resin, or they are afraid to do resin, or just don't want to. They can't be bothered with all of the safety stuff and the additional things that you have to do and the responsibilities that you need to take on in order to safely deal with resin. But they still want to do 3D printing, and FDM is an amazing option for that still. So what I would like to do is basically just upgrade the equipment that I have in order to produce more awesome figure related things that are based in FDM printing and not just resin 3D printing. I'm talking about different accessories, large statues, multicolor things, stuff like that. And in order to do that, I'm going to need better equipment. I don't know what I'm going to get. Frankly, I don't know how I'm going to be able to get them, but that is the main goal. I want to be able to take a larger, more modern, faster, better equipped FDM based 3D printer and just introduce that to the world of figure collecting, and just sort of branching off in that other path. I'm still going to be talking a lot about resin, still going to be reviewing different resins, still going to be printing a lot of things in resin, but I do know that FDM has kind of been a blind spot that I've had on this channel, and I want to make that right in 2024. So fingers crossed that I can pull that off so that I can have a little bit more balance in that regard. And as for 2023, like I said, there were a lot of different firsts. The first foray into 3D printing, which also led to my first experiences with actually painting. Before I started 3D printing, I had never tried to paint a figure from scratch before. In fact, the first time that I even tried to put paint on an already painted figure, just to try to improve it a little bit, I guess, was back in December of 2022 with the McFarlane Warhammer 40K Ogryn Mega Fig. And after I did that, the very next month, in January of 2023, I tried to paint my first figure from scratch, from gray. And since then, I've tried my hand at painting different things throughout the year. Not nearly as much as I should have done, but I did give it my best shot. So right now, I do want to share with you some of the figures that I have printed and painted this year in 2023, along with one or two other things that were already made that I just tried to paint up from scratch. So take a look at it. Now, before I wrap things up, I want to share with you my favorite 3D prints of this year. And there have been a lot of things. I've printed so many things. It's ridiculous. Most of them have been miniatures because those are quicker to print and I can print more of them at a time. But even besides that, I mean, so many things that I've printed, and it's really difficult to really nail down what I would consider to be my top 5 or my 5 favorite, but I did my best. So here are 5 of my favorite 3D prints to round out 2023. Let's start off with Bishop here, and this is a sculpt from Wicked, and this figure is just one of my favorites. He turned out so good, and I used this 1-ping resin to print him, and I think he came out just wonderfully. I love the color of him. This has turned out to be one of my favorite resins that I've used, and considering that I have a small printer, I had to print multiple pieces at different times in order to glue it all together, and the entire thing is completely solid, and he just looks amazing. So this is definitely one of my favorite prints of the year. My second favorite print is this Iceman sculpture, and I was able to print this with the help of Ace Additive that provided me with all the resin that I needed to make this work. My goal here was to make Iceman as big as I possibly could using individual pieces on my small printer, and this was a 3-part series. It was also the first time that I used a clear transparent resin, and everything just worked out really good. Again, I didn't have any failures with it. The Ace Additive resin is also one of my favorite brands of resin. It just does a really wonderful job. And this Iceman is now sitting on my shelf permanently, and he is heavy. Those ice spikes are sharp, and it's definitely one of my favorite prints of 2023, along with my man Bishop. Here's something that's actually not printed in resin. This is just a file of a destroyed house that I found on my mini factory, and I printed this with white filament on the Ender 3 Pro. And I printed this because I thought that I wanted to make something that was sort of a juxtaposition, because I wanted to paint it sort of whimsically with different colored bricks, something that looks like it came from a fantasy world that was one day destroyed by some sort of horrible calamity. And it also gave me an opportunity to practice really heavy dry brushing of different colors and just kind of having fun with it. So in the end, I really like the way that it turned out. It looks like a really destroyed, burned, completely obliterated house that at one point in time may have been something that, I don't know, like fairies or elves might have lived in. So because I took the time and effort to really sit down and paint and concentrate on this guy, and it has a little bit of a story behind it, this is why it ended up on my list of favorite prints of 2023. Next up is Cyborg Superman. This was my first large 3D printed piece, and this is made out of a combination of resin and FDM. I printed all of the base entirely out of filament, and in one or two of the parts of Superman is also printed in filament because I ran out of resin and I was experiencing failures. So I just sort of put everything together and hoped for the best. And even though it's far from perfect, at a glance and especially at a distance, when you look at them, it just looks really, really amazing. And I love the way that this base is designed. Need quite a bit of vertical space in order to make him stand properly and really stand out. But because this is my very first big print and it happened in 2023, I had to put it on the list. And last but certainly not least is my first attempt at printing a large bust on the Ender 3 Pro, and it is a Batman from The Dark Knight Returns. And this model really taught me something about infill, because the first time that I tried to print them, I set the infill a bit too high and it was using a ton of filament, and I actually ran out of filament, and I just left it suspended and paused for several hours. And when I finally got more filament and I tried to load it and put it on, something happened that knocked the distance out of whack, and then it just started spaghettiing all over the place. So I had to start all over again and print them from scratch, and I lowered the infill a bit on this model so that it wouldn't use up so much filament. But he came out looking really, really great. And this model also showed me the potential of FDM printing when it comes to printing figures and models like this that require some detail. I think this guy came out looking really, really good. And the fact that it was done on an old Ender 3 Pro just kind of tells me if I were to print the same thing on a newer, more modern, faster, more accurate machine, the results can be even better. And even though with resin, of course, you're going to get smoother, you're going to get like a higher, nicer quality model overall, it's still really possible with FDM printing, which is something that I'm hoping to show, like I said, in 2024. So because this sort of opened up my eyes into those possibilities, that's why he made it to the list of my favorite prints of 2023. Now, there are a bunch of different things that I would love to have included on the list, but I only could pick 5. But there's so many amazing miniatures that I printed out. I have my favorite failed print, which was a ukulele that's on the wall behind me, that's behind the camera actually, and just some other things that I just cannot even think about right now because there's so many. But that's what happens when you start 3D printing and you really get into it. You can easily become overwhelmed with the amount of things that you print and just find yourself just surrounded by these things, just like I have. But I'm really happy to continue doing this in the future, and I hope that I'm going to be able to provide some useful information that new and existing people that's looking at this channel will be able to take and learn and hopefully start their own 3D printing journey, or even improve their current action figure collection with things that they can 3D print themselves. And we'll see what the year brings for that. So again, I want to thank everybody so much for watching this video and any other video of mine that you might have watched this year. And I hope that you choose to stick around for 2024 and see where that goes. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, which will be 2024, unless you're in Australia, in which case you're already there. But all the same, take care of yourselves, and I'll speak to you soon.